Okay, so we are going to continue our coverage over Benjamin Percy's X-Force, where we actually do pick up with a next story arc that is going to give us the origin of the man with the peacock tattoo. Now remember, this was a character that was introduced in the early days of this X-Force series, where we saw him be the leader of a new group known as Zeno. Now, when it came to Zeno, their main goal, like many other groups, was to get rid of the mutant race. But they were doing things a tad bit differently. Either way, when it came to the man with the peacock tattoo, we knew that he was the leader. The problem was, though, we never did learn who the guy actually was or what is his origin story. What led him down the path into becoming somebody who hates mutants so much. And so this story arc right here is going to give us the actual origin of the man with the peacock tattoo. And so getting into today's storyline, we actually do pick up with X-Force. Actually, we pick up with Domino going undercover. Now, the reason why she is going undercover is because, well, X-Force just got word that Zeno has been trying to sell different kind of weapons to different countries in Europe and Asia. Now, this really shows that even though when it comes to Krakoa being their own nation and helping other nations out, you still have some nations out there who don't trust the mutants at all. And so right now, when it comes to Zeno, they're selling weapons to help these nations just protect themselves just in case mutants do go bad down the road. And it could lead into a war between humans and mutants. And so with that being said, when it comes to Domino, her main goal is to go undercover and figure out what kind of weapons they are giving to other countries in Europe and Asia. Now, you have Deadpool and also Omega Red watching over her from a far distance. But something else to mention is that when it comes to X-Force, they don't trust Beast at all. Now, this is only because the last story arc, really the last few story arcs, but the last one was kind of the cherry on top, because Beast believes that because he is the leader of X-Force, that he has the right to hide things and do different things behind the backs of the other members of X-Force. Like in our last story arc, Homeboy built his own prison in the middle of space between Earth and Mars, and the rest of X-Force had no idea he did that. And so even though you have Sage talking to X-Force, Beast is also trying to do the same thing as well. But the problem is the rest of X-Force is just ignoring him and saying like, hey Sage, we'll listen to you, but we are no longer going to listen to him. Now, as soon as Domino walks into the place, that is when she finds out that every single person right now in this restaurant is actually a member of Zeno. Now, here's the thing about Zeno. Most of their members were technically created. And what I mean by that is, when it comes to the man with the peacock tattoo and other members across the world, they were technically working together to create all their different kind of agents they use on their missions. And so most of their agents were bioengineered, clone of different people. And matter of fact, when it comes to Domino, in the very first story arc of X-Force, she was captured and they would cut up different pieces of her body parts as a way to make clones of her. And so that's what I mean. When it comes to most of the members of their group, they are technically clones of different people across the world. Sometimes mutants, sometimes humans, and heck, sometimes could be any other race that's on Earth right now. Either way, every single person right now in this room is a member of Zeno, and they believe that she's actually here to be part of their new program, to buy weapons to make sure their area is defended against mutants. Now the problem is though, even though you have Deadpool and Omega Red watching from afar, they do realize that their cover has been blown because somebody sees them, and they already know if Omega Red and Deadpool are up there, that means the girl inside must be Domino, and now our heroes have to fight for their lives. Now, when it comes to the fight, it doesn't last that long for the first chapter, and the reason why, because it just shows that even though every single time X-Force has different ways to kind of figure out what Zeno is doing, something always goes south. And when something goes south, unfortunately, they are not able to get what they need to kind of help them bring down Zeno. And so just like right now, because their cover has been blown and it does lead into a full battle, you have our heroes think, okay, you know what? We'll just try to grab one of them, make them our hostage, and try to learn more about Zeno. And yes, they do know that when it comes to most of the members of Zeno, they are technically clones of different people across the world. But the thing is, they can still learn something off those clones. The problem is, when it comes to these members of Zeno, they know that there's no way they're going to be able to stop Omega Red, Deadpool, and also Domino. And so they kill themselves. Now, right after they take a pill to kill themselves, they begin to melt to show that they're going to make sure there's no way that X-Force should be able to grab one of their clones to learn more about how Zeno are making these clones. Because now these clones have melted to the point where there's almost a pile of goo, and that is it. And so this entire mission is a failure. Now, you do have our heroes go back home to Krakoa. Now, when they do go to their separate houses, except when it comes to Domino, when she does walk into her house, she finds some kind of painting on the ground. Now, when she does go look at the painting, it's her, except it was her when she was with Zeno. Because like I said earlier, when it came to Zeno, they were known to make clones of different people. But the first person was Domino. They basically cut her up and used pieces of her as a way to make clones of her. And so when it comes to the painting, it's showing her back then being used as some kind of experiment. The thing is though, she knows who painted this. It was Colossus. And this is actually very important. And the reason why, because when it came to the earlier parts of X-Force, Domino and Colossus were very close. And the reason why? Because they both went through a lot in the earlier books of this series. Especially Domino, with the idea of being held as a prisoner and being used as an experiment. So they said to each other, if they ever do die, when it comes to being brought back to life, they do not want to remember the times, their dark times, when it came to Zeno or other kind of people who had caused them harm. And so when Domino died, Colossus told the Five, hey, when you bring her back to life, she does not want to remember the worst moments of her life, which was being used as an experiment by Zeno. And so when the Five brought her back, she technically forgot about those moments. Not completely, but mostly. And so when she sees that painting, she believes it's Colossus just trying to remind her of the worst time of her life. Except you have Colossus say, I didn't paint that. Except Domino cannot believe that, because he was the only person who knew that she went through a lot, and she said that if I do die, make sure, Colossus, I do not remember anything. She only told him and no one else. But on top of that, when it comes to the painting, it was painted in his style. And so she truly does believe it was Colossus who did that painting and left it in her home. Now, we do see X-Force call for another meeting. Now, when it comes to this meeting, it's really more of X-Force talking about the idea that they want to find the base of Zeno, but they have no idea how to do that. And so when it comes to Beast, he does have an idea, and he says, why not give them an egg? Now, what he means by that is, when it comes to the Five, they are 5 mutants who have the ability to bring you back to life. Now, the way they do that is that they create you a brand new clone body and then download your mind into that clone body. Now, that is very important. And the reason why, because when it comes to the body, it has to grow inside an egg that was created by the Five. And so what Beast is saying, why not give them an egg? Except when it comes to the egg, it's not going to be anybody important at all. It could just be some kind of random man inside the egg that's not going to help Zeno at all when it comes to understanding Krakoa and all their different kind of technology. But inside the egg, there's going to be a tracker. And with that tracker, it's going to technically give X-Force the ability to find Zeno base. Now, here comes the problem though, because when it comes to Beast, he says he knows how to get the egg over to the man with the peacock tattoo, because he knows that he also goes to Legacy House. Now, when it comes to Legacy House, we have seen this organization in both Wolverine comics, but also X-Force comics as well. Now, when it comes to the Legacy House, it's being run by a guy better known as the Merchant. Now, when it comes to the Merchant, he's better known as a guy who has different kinds of auctions where he sells different kind of items that belong to both superheroes and supervillains. And that is very important. And the reason why, because when it comes to Beast, he's saying, listen, why not get the Merchant to sell one of our eggs? And when it comes to that egg, there is going to be a tracker inside. And with that tracker, we should be able to find the base of Zeno. It's a great plan, except when it comes to the rest of the members of X-Force, they're very worried about the idea of handing over an egg to Zeno and to the man with the peacock tattoo, because they are afraid that inside the egg, there could be some kind of Omega level mutant or some kind of powerful mutant they never seen before. And so if the man with the peacock tattoo is able to get to that body, he'll then have the ability to clone that body and do many different kind of experiments. Except you have B say, well, unfortunately, when it comes to the egg, there are many steps he has to take to be able to hatch the egg. And so unfortunately for his case, there's no way, except he could do that if he is able to find some kind of powerful psychic that could kind of help the egg hatch. But unfortunately for him, he doesn't have one, except we kind of find out in reality, he does. We see a clone of Kid Omega. And so this leads us into the next chapter, where you technically have X-Force just waiting for a ping from their tracker to help them be able to locate the actual secret base of, well, Zeno. And so while they're waiting, you do have your usual X-Force banter, and honestly, the banter is kind of cool and all. It does kind of give us some comedy relief. But after you have Deadpool being, well, Deadpool, you do have X-Force being able to get a ping. And they're able to realize that, okay, we kind of find out the base is somewhere in East Africa. This is great, cool. But the problem is though, they're unable to get an exact location. And the reason why? Because their tracker was destroyed. And with that tracker gone, well, now it means they are no longer able to get an exact location. Until you have Domino say, you know what? How about this? I have a great idea. And that great idea is to her to regain her lost memories. Because remember, when she was being held as a hostage by Zeno, she went through a lot, except when she came back to life in her brand new body, she did not want to remember what they done to her. But she says if she's able to remember, she might be able to figure out where the base actually is. And so they're saying that is a very huge risk to take, because it can technically take a toll on you mentally. But at the same time, it's her saying, but it might give us the chance to finally shut down Zeno. And so she does agree to go through the process of regaining what she had forgotten. And so this is where we jump over to the man with the peacock tattoo and Kid Omega, or the clone of Kid Omega. And this is where we are reminded of where this clone actually came from. And what I mean by that is, in the earlier story arc, we saw Kid Omega get grabbed by Zeno. Now, when that was done, they were able to grab enough DNA samples of Kid Omega to begin the process of making clones of him. And so when it came to this clone right here, we now know where it came from after the original Kid Omega was captured. Now, this could be a way to bring back Kid Omega in X-Force comics. And what I mean by that is, in the earlier story arc, Kid Omega died when X-Force was fighting against the evil version of Cerebro. Now, after they were able to defeat him, well, every single file that was kept on about Kid Omega was deleted. And so because of that, the Five is not able to bring him back to life, because those files were holding every single memory of Kid Omega. And so if they were able to make him a new clone body, unfortunately, there's no mind to be downloaded into that new clone body of Kid Omega. Now, this is where we kind of find out that the man with the peacock tattoo has been using the clone of Kid Omega to kind of help with different kind of projects around the base. And so you do kind of have the clone of Kid Omega look at the man with the peacock tattoo as a father and being happy about the idea of being able to help him accomplish different kind of projects around the place. Except it does lead into the idea where the clone of Kid Omega wants to learn the origin of his supposed father, which then gives us the origin of the man with the peacock tattoo. Now, when it comes to the man with the peacock tattoo, well, when he does tell his origin, the first origin he tells is actually a lie, where he made it seem like he was a son to a great man, and his father was some great scientist who had some great big house in the middle of a random island and had all these different kind of exotic animals. And with these exotic animals, his father would do all these different kind of experiments and sometimes would bring him in to learn more about these exotic animals. And so while you have the man with the peacock tattoo trying to tell his origin story, well, you didn't have the clone of Kid Omega say, "You're lying, because I can read your mind, and I now know that you're hiding your true origin. So please, Father, tell me your true origin story." And so we do jump over to Domino, and right now we see her going through all the different processes that could lead into her remembering her time being held as a prisoner by Zeno and by the man with the peacock tattoo. And so it's very hard for her to kind of go back over the idea of remembering every single thing they have done to her. They cut her up and did other weird kinds of experiments. But the thing is, it's going to help them figure out where their base actually is. And so once she has reached the finale of the whole process, that is when she says, "I know where they're at." And matter of fact, they're right now in Genosha. And so we have to go over there if we're going to be able to find their base and to finally shut them down. And so this is where we dive into the origin of the man with the peacock tattoo. Now, I will admit, I was kind of disappointed by his origin because we kind of find out that he is a clone himself. And what I mean by that is, when it comes to the origin of the man with the peacock tattoo, we kind of find out that many years ago when he was created, he was a clone of some random scientist who would make clones of himself, but every single clone was just a child version of himself. But the thing was, each clone was just as smart as he was, and he would try to do different kinds of experiments. Now, when it comes to the man with the peacock tattoo, he tells us that when it came to the original person, the one he was cloned from, he had his own children as well. And so he was very confused about the idea of why this man was making clones of himself. Either way, every once in a while, one of the clones would be able to go upstairs and run different kind of experiments with the original person. And so when it came to the man with the peacock tattoo, it was his turn. The problem was one of the young boys who was assigned to the original person made a mistake, which caused a small explosion. With that explosion, it scarred the kid's face. Of course, that kid was the man with the peacock tattoo. And so right after he got scarred, it kind of led him down a dark path, where he got tired of being just known as a clone and he wanted to be, this better person in the world. And so he was able to break out of his prison, take down the man who had created him, and killed off every single other person in this facility. Yeah, that is his entire origin story there. Now, when it comes to X-Force, they do arrive at the location where Genosha used to be at, but at the same time where the base of Zeno could possibly be at. The problem is, though, it is protected by more experiments that were done by Zeno and the man with the peacock tattoo. And so now it's up to our heroes to get through these creatures and being able to get inside the base to finally bring this man down and hopefully this entire organization. Now we do jump back over to Kid Omega and also the man with the peacock tattoo, because when it comes to Kid Omega, he looks at the man with the peacock tattoo as a father, and he does ask one question: are you going to use me as well for experiments? Now, when it comes to the man with the peacock tattoo, he says no. But in reality, that is a lie. And when it comes to Kid Omega, he's able to read his mind. And when he does, he comes to find out it was a lie. He's all like, no, you do plan to use me for experiments. And so he runs away. Now you do have the man with the peacock tattoo chase after him, but he does tell us, the readers, that thanks to this clone was able to help out with different kinds of experiments. Especially when it came to one experiment where the man with the peacock tattoo was able to make some kind of powerful being. And when it comes to this powerful being, it's just a combination of different parts of different members of X-Force being put together into one person. So parts of Deadpool, parts of Domino, our Omega Red, Wolverine, Beast, Colossus, being bundled together into one creature, a really powerful kind of creature. And so this leads us into the final chapter. Now, when it comes to the final chapter of the storyline, we do pick up with our heroes just fighting their way into the actual base of Zeno. Now, when it comes to the first few pages of this storyline, when it comes to the first few pages of this chapter, we actually do see our heroes fight against giant version of humans that were created by Zeno and the man with the peacock tattoo. And honestly, while I was reading this section, my mind instantly thought of Attack on Titans. And the reason why, because the show just wrapped up, and while the show was wrapping up, I was reading this book right here. Either way, you do have our heroes being able to fight their way through these monsters, but also get inside the actual base of Zeno and hopefully find the man with the peacock tattoo and defeat him once and for all. Now, getting back over to Kid Omega and also the man with the peacock tattoo, we see him trying to find Kid Omega in the laboratory, and this is really only 2 pages, but you do have the man with the peacock tattoo being able to find Kid Omega and inject some kind of chemical in his body. Now, we're left to believe that what he did injected could technically kill him off. We have no idea, except we're left to believe that Kid Omega is dead because this guy truly does hate mutants. Even the ones he created are clones, they're still mutants, and he hates them with a passion. But getting back over to the field team of X-Force, they were able to find a computer that will give them access to all the different files that belong to Zeno. And so you have Sage and also Beast tell Omega Red to go ahead and lock himself into the actual computer and then feed them all the different kind of data that Zeno is holding on that computer. Now, while you have our heroes waiting to download every single piece of information, well, that is when they do get attacked by the creature we saw earlier. And so now our heroes have to fight against that creature. Really, it's up to Domino and Deadpool to hold off that creature long enough to give Omega Red enough time to download every single file that Zeno has on this one particular computer. Now, when it comes to the battle between X-Force and this creature, it does lead all over the actual facility to the point where the fight does take place near the man with the peacock tattoo and Kid Omega. Now, when it comes to the man with the peacock tattoo, he is not worried at all by being attacked by this creature because he technically does have control of the creature. But he's very confident that the creature should be able to go ahead and kill off X-Force, and then he'll be able to continue his experiments. And so while the fight goes on, you have Omega Red beg Beast and also Sage to go ahead and let go of the computer to help out his team members take down this creature. Now, when it comes to Beast, it's more of, no, you're not going to. Like, let them die, because if they die, we can just bring them back to life. But on top of that, we will be able to technically download every single information that Zeno has. But to Sage, it's more of, they're still people. You're basically saying right now, Beast, that those guys out there in the field are just weapons to be used. They're not people at all. Yes, they can die and be brought back to life, but they will have to remember every single crucial moment of their death if they do by the hands of this creature. And so you do have Omega Red just deplug and help his team members fight against the creature. Unfortunately, he dies just like that. Now, when it does seem like Deadpool and Domino are about to die as well and be held as prisoners or captives by the man with the peacock tattoo, that is when we see Kid Omega being able to get back up and use his powers to control the mind of the creature to make the creature actually attack the man with the peacock tattoo instead. And so we do jump over to the ending of the book where you do pick up with Kid Omega and X-Force being able to tie down the man with the peacock tattoo. And then you have Domino tell the clone of Kid Omega to turn the other experiments against the man with the peacock tattoo to remind him of what he has done to her, Domino, and also other people around the world. And so this is his actual death. And this really did bother me a lot. I mean, yes, it was a good closure for the character when it came to Domino and him, but at the same time, I felt like this was a character where they could have done so much more with the character to make the fans fall in love with him even more. But unfortunately, he dies at the end of the storyline. And so that wraps up today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.